G'day guys and happy Wednesday. How good is the beard coming along? I'm loving it. So today we're going to have a chat with Lars. He's over in Norway. I met him through the beard struggle and we've been chatting for the last 2 weeks. I wanted to get him onto the channel and have a chat to hear his experience with mental health issues. So he's diagnosed bipolar and social anxiety. So in this video, we'll just chat along and get his experience. Bear with him. Like I said, he's from Norway. English isn't his first language, but I think he does a pretty good job. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome, Lars, to my channel. How you been?
I've been fine, thank you.
That's
Thanks
good.
for having me.
No, so why I've got you on today is to, have a chat and, I'm trying to spread awareness about mental health, all types of mental health. I think everyone should start talking about it more. I've been speaking to you for the last couple of weeks since we both, became brand Vikings, part of the beard struggle. And, I'm starting to get to know you a little bit better. So couple of questions. So you suffer from a mental health illness issue. What's your diagnosis?
My diagnosis is bipolar disorder type 2 and with an underlying social anxiety. So if people don't know much about bipolar disorder, it's pretty much mood swings. You're either depressed or you're have a period of mania. But there are different kinds of bipolar disorders, and you have type 1. So the depression period is just the same, but it's a little bit different when you're up high. If you have type 1, you experience mania, and if you have type 2 as me, it's called hypomania, and that's a little less I'm a little less maniac because I have type 2 than type 1, but it's either very low or very high. So when I'm having a period of hypomania, I'm really energetic. I want to do everything I don't when I'm depressed. So I try to catch up, and I get a ton of ideas, and I try to catch up really. And I get a lot of ideas, and I want to do it all at the same time.
Yes.
So if you don't control it, you burn out really fast.
Yes. And then does that, if you don't control it when you're in those highs, when you come down, is it worse coming down from a big high?
Yeah, because the difference is so huge. You go from having a lot of energy and you have tons of creativity and you have ideas and you want to do as much as you possibly can, and you sleep less and the head's spinning all the time. And when you get down again, it's like everything, it's like a balloon, and you pop a balloon and all the air disappear, and you just lie in your bed and have a hard time just getting up. I have kids, so that has helped me a lot in that sense, because I have someone just that I love and wanna get up and see. So that has helped me a lot.
Yeah, no, kids are very helpful. I got a young boy myself. He's 3 or 4 this year, and he's on I didn't get in my depression mode. He's the one that snaps me out of it. Wife works, so I'm a stay-at-home dad. So those days I have to get up and look after my boy. So I understand what you're saying there. So how long have you been diagnosed with bipolar for?
I got my diagnosis last year, actually, because I went. I've been this as long as I can remember, since I was a kid. I don't remember much from my childhood. I say I had a pretty normal childhood. I was active like all other kids, but I am I didn't have a sense of self. So if I was playing with whoever I was playing with, I was like that person. So when I came home, my mom always said that she could tell who I had been playing with because I was just like him or her. And so that is something have struggled a lot with in my adult life because I don't really know myself that well, or I don't have. I usually please people. I often agree and tell people what they like to hear, just because I'm afraid people don't like me. So I don't really stand up for myself, and I have struggled a lot with that. But as I said, have felt like this since I can remember, really. But I didn't get any help when I was younger, and when I got adult, I really had a hard time asking for help and seeking help. I got I lived a bit in denial, maybe, and I was afraid to go to therapy because I don't know why really, but my wife was on me all the time. You have to get help. You have to get help. And the last years I seeked help, but when you're when you're gonna find a therapist, that's not easy either because you have to find a therapist you have good chemistry with, and that sees you and take you seriously. So as we have in Norway, we go to our doctor and we get a referral to a therapist, but then we have to call and get the therapist ourselves. So it's like when you often go to the doctor, you're depressed, and then you have to call around to find your own therapist, and usually they have waiting lists, usually on months, maybe years. So that's like going to a job interview when you're really depressed. You have to do it by yourself, and when you finally come through to someone, it's not sure you have a good chemistry, and they take you seriously. So that's also a search to find the right one. So last year I finally found a therapist I have a good chemistry with, and that has helped me a lot. And I am currently on medication too.
Well, that's good. Yeah, you're not alone in that department. A lot of people do find, difficult, especially, men. We've been taught our whole life to, suck it up, just tough it
Yeah,
out. We're men, we're tough. We should be out there, putting that mask on, showing our strength, which
yeah,
to me is a load of crap that has to stop. And that's one of the reasons I do this at the moment.
yeah,
But, I've been through, oh, in the last 7 years since I had my PTSD and depression and anxiety, I think I've gone through 7 psychologists and or psychiatrists and probably around 5 psychologists just to find, like
yeah,
you said, find that chemistry, that gel where you can feel comfortable to talk about it. And, a lot of people do give up after 1 or 2 and
mm,
they think they're all the same and they're all just not going to help, and they try to fight this battle alone. So I'm glad that you were able to fight it out and to find your a new thing that new psychiatrist that you gel with, and
yeah,
lucky you had a loving wife and that pushed you to get help, which is awesome. I got one exactly the same. You can always tell me you need to do this, and most of the time she's right. Oh, actually, probably all the time she's right, but I won't let her know that. So, yeah. So you're saying, yep. So you're seeking help, and you're on medication.
yeah.
How do you feel about the medication?
It does help me a lot, and I go on antidepressants, and I take a medication for my bipolar disorder. That's really an epileptic yeah, you know what I mean?
Yep, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah,
Epileptic.
yeah, right. So the medication is for that, but they have done a lot of research in the later years, and they found that it helped a lot on people with bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
So that's the two medications I take, and I feel like it has helped me a lot. But there's also the sense that it has taken off me some of the edges of me that I like. I feel like of course I'm the same person, but I miss a few things about myself that probably has something to do with my mental illness, but which I have learned to live with, and it's, has become a part of me. And now I just probably because I've been both low and high, and now I'm feeling on the middle part, the part that I'm just passing through, either
Yeah.
on the way up or down. So that's probably the biggest difference, that I'm now more in the middle, and that's a weird feeling, and because I never experienced it really.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. And the reason I asked about, medication, I've spoken to a lot of people that, have depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar, OCD, and all this other stuff. And, a lot of them, and I used to be one of them, no, don't want medication, don't need medication, in that denial. I've been on medication myself since 2014. Took me a while. I've been through 10 different antidepressants just because bad
Yeah,
side effects and just didn't agree with me. So
mm,
I finally found a good one that's actually keeps me level, and it's
yeah,
good. So I wanted to highlight that part because a lot of people think that medication is bad, and thing. But when you're in these situations where you know you got that imbalance in your brain that's making you go high or low, and very depressed and anxiety, for us to function, we need these medication to fix that imbalance in our head, and still a lot of people don't like it and refuse to get that type of help, or they refuse to go talk to people because they're afraid to go get put on medication when all it's doing is helping us rebuild our lives, so to say. So yeah,
yeah, yeah,
do you agree with that?
yeah, totally. And because of my illness, I've been unable to finish things because I start things when I'm high, and then I get low, and I drop totally off. So I struggled my whole life with finishing things. So I never finished school. I started with this, I started with that, and when I was high, it went well. But then I get a period when I was depressed, and then I just I couldn't do it really. And my periods when I'm depressed is always longer than the high parts. For as I said earlier, if you can't control the high parts, you burn out really fast
Yeah.
because you're doing too much, you're sleeping too little, you eat too little, because you're just firing on all cylinders. Feels like you have two brains.
Yeah. So how do you think, having bipolar and social anxiety, how do you reckon that's changed your life? Or because you've had, like you said, you've had really bipolar um, since you can remember, even though you only been diagnosed, a year ago. Um,
Yeah,
how do you
yeah,
feel like that's, now that you know what it is, how do you reckon that's, changed your life or even molded your life?
yeah. I think it's much easier now that I know what it is, because that's not the easy part either, to find the right diagnose. Because when it comes to mental illness, a lot of different illnesses often intertwine. Is it that called?
Yep.
Go together. If
Yeah,
you have one,
intertwined.
you probably have a little of something else. Yeah. So it's been difficult to find out what it is, and I have googled a lot, as many other people, and read, and I felt very at bipolar disorder spoke to me. I just understood, but then you get doubts. Do because I think I have that myself, and I read about it, uh, get I mixed up in that I want it to be that illness. So when I read about it, the symptoms will feel like, but I have had a hard time uh, uh, looking for words.
Yeah, no, you're right.
If I'm, yeah, have had a hard time if I want the symptoms I wanted, or if it actually was. So it was good when I finally got my diagnosis to know what it is, but then it's much easier to attack it when you know what it is. For the years before, I kind of fought an invisible enemy. I didn't know what it was. So it's much easier now. I'm much more comfortable, and this is a huge part of me. And as you also feel like it's a huge part of us, and it's certainly affects our lives. And I kind of felt dishonest in a way, because I carried so much that I couldn't talk about, which was a huge part of me. So when I got to know new people, my family, friends, no one knew that I was having these issues. So my best friend and my mom, I told maybe in November, December last year. So I feel like have been hiding a big part of myself. So I have struggled a little bit with that, because uh, I felt that I held back something that's had a huge effect on my life. And I have you, I have you a little Norwegian in there.
Yeah, no.
I have self-medicated with food. I always if I had was happy, if I was sad, if I struggled with things, if it was something to celebrate, it was always food to numb the feelings, whatever I had. So I have a bad relationship with food, really, and now I'm really overweight and have troubles with that as well. I'm on medication for hypertension and diabetes, uh, along with bipolar and antidepressants. So it's a lot of pills.
Yeah.
But so I want to change my life, and I think it's easier now that I know what it is and can attack it with the knowledge of what it is, other than fighting something I don't know what is.
No, that's good. And, I've been following you along like last couple of weeks since we've met. And, you've been killing it in the gym. And, for me, to see what you're putting in, you should be really proud of yourself. So I just want to let you know
Thank you.
that. Um, One other little question with that, with how it shaped your life. Do you think your bipolar and, your social anxiety and, what you said, you're struggling with your weight because you rely on food thing. Do you think that defines who you are, or do you think it's just a part of you?
No, it's just a part of me, but I haven't realized that before I went to therapy now. So it's just maybe a month or two. since I got a little epiphany, maybe, about because I thought it defined me. I thought I was my illness, but now I understand that the illness is just a part of me, and yes, it affects me, but it doesn't define me. But whole my entire life, I've thought that that's who I am. I am my bipolar disorder instead of it's a part of me. So that's a huge breakthrough.
It is.
Absolutely, yeah. So for sure, it's has affected me a lot, but there are some positives too. I think because of how that we struggle with mental issues, we are more understanding, and I think I have a lot more empathy and and willingness to help people, and I think that's a personality trait too. But I think it's uh, even stronger because of what I have, and I'm very aware of people. I'm very aware of myself, and um, uh, and I try to help as much as I can. And I think that's probably the most positive thing about this. Really. Uh, because if I didn't have it, I don't know, of course, but I don't think I would be the same person in that regard.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, no, so I couldn't have said it better. And the reason I ask that is, you have psychologists and psychiatrists and even GPs tell you that, this isn't this illness doesn't define you and all that. Like I've heard it, and me personally, same as you, had that epiphany, probably a year ago for me that
yeah,
you know, this wasn't who I was. It's a part of me, but doesn't define me. Same like I'm
yeah,
a military veteran here in Australia, so I was an army medic. And I was in that
yeah,
for 8 years. I was meant to be in there for life, but with my injuries and my mental health, I got medical discharge. I thought, being a soldier, being a medic, that's who I was. That's what defined me. And then,
yeah,
coming out and then dealing with all my injuries, my mental health, because I couldn't define myself as a soldier anymore. The
no,
next thing was I defined myself that I had, you know, bad shoulder, bad back, I had PTSD, adjustment disorder, depression, anxiety. That's what defined me because,
yeah,
something that was part of my life so much just ended straight away. And then, I didn't know who I was. I was dealing with all this stuff, and this is back when it was really bad. And so I started defining myself as this broken person. That's who I was. But really, I
yeah,
wasn't. That was
yeah,
just a part of me, and it still is. And with people that suffer mental health like yourself and me, and many of the other humans around the world that all suffer from mental health, we might not ever be free of these illness or disorders, um,
no,
but I think we're starting to get to a good age where we're starting to understand more, like the technology we
mm,
have and the science that we have to deal into all these processes are just getting so much better. So I think as soon as we can start talking about it a little bit more, um, you know, and start understanding the mental health, I see a very bright future for everyone.
yeah,
And that's one
yeah,
thing I want to think is like, yeah, we'll have this probably for the rest of our life, but it's not who we are. It's just
no,
a part of
and
us.
yeah, and I decided to be open about it now, and in a way, that's been therapeutic too, because I don't feel like I'm hiding that part of me anymore. So that has been really helpful. And as you said, I grew up in the 80s, and uh, you never, as a guy or a man or a boy, you should not talk about your feelings. It was just suck it up, be a man. Uh, and I thought that I didn't have much emotions, but that's totally wrong because I have a lot of emotions, and that I've had a hard time coping with. That's probably the reason why I turned to food. Uh, and another part of why I choose to be open is to spread more knowledge, and because it's a lot of stigma, and you hear someone say, "Oh, he has a mental illness," and you get. But before you choose to be open, you have to be prepared to be labeled, because a lot of people will then label you with, "Oh, that's the crazy man," or something. So if you're prepared for that, that you can be labeled, and people can change their view of you. But I have so far I have just had positive feedback, really. But so it's been good for me. But as I said, it's important what you do and spread knowledge, because I can say for myself, if I heard someone was paranoid maybe, or had schizophrenia, and I was, oh my, and because I knew and still know very little about it, I right away I get a little maybe a little scared, a little fear, because you don't know what it is. But if you watch movies and stuff like that, they portray them as really out there. So I think it's important to get it out there that even though you have a mental illness, you're not a dangerous person. You're not. Uh, you're just we're normal people, and it's nothing to be afraid of. Uh, so that's the biggest thing for me, to get out there, that we are just normal people. We're dads, we're brothers, we're fathers, we're friends, we're parents, and all that. We're just normal.
Yeah, no, it's really said. So, one of the last questions that I wanted to ask you, and you kind of touched a bit on it. So, what's the worst thing someone has said or acted towards you once they found out you had bipolar? So, for example, like probably the worst thing I've had said to me was from a mate, and he pretty much told me that it was all in my head and to just get over it.
Yeah,
So, you know,
yeah,
that's, and I did a video earlier. I'm like, this is probably the worst thing in my eyes. That's the worst thing to say to someone with a mental health issue. Like that,
yeah,
I snapped. I had my anger outburst, which is one of my symptoms for my PTSD. Is I do get anger outbursts,
yeah, yeah,
and you know, I haven't spoken to
yeah,
that person since then. And so that to me, that's the worst thing that someone's ever said to me. Um, so,
yeah,
from that example, what's the worst thing someone said or how they acted towards you once they found out
yeah.
you had bipolar?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. One of the worst things is when people say, "Oh, just get your shit together and do it. It's not worse for you than anyone else." And it's worse for us. But that goes that people don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand. They just think everybody have good and bad days, and it's not worse for you than anyone else. So that's been tough, to don't get the understanding you need, because we have an illness that's on the inside. People don't see it, and that's can be bad, as bad or worse than a physical disease. So that's been tough, and because of the little knowledge, I once was called a psychopath, and
Yeah,
I'm far from that, because they just don't know. They hear a mental illness, and they're like, wow, and
they think we're
that's
contagious.
probably the worst. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Uh, that's a good word. So that's probably the worst. especially when at times I've been suicidal. So it's extra tough to hear that you just get it together. Yeah, so that's been tough, really, because as you know, people with bad days, we have an expression in Norway that says "jeg er helt i kjelleren," and that means roughly translated, it's you're down in the basement and with the lights off, it's pitch black. But for us, it's we're one level down from there. It's it's so dark. You see no hope, and I know people talk a lot about suicide and people who are more afraid to live than to die and choose to end their own life. And many people think that it's an ego thing to do. And I can totally understand that, because they say you leave loved ones behind, and you have fathers or mothers who does it and leave their kids behind. But what I can say from my point of view, as I've been suicidal myself, the last time was back in 2015, and I flipped a coin actually. I decided heads or tails, and I thought to myself, if I get heads or tails, heads, I end it, tails, I give it one more real try. I flipped the coin, and it was like time stood still. And when the coin landed, I did this. I catch the coin, flipped it so. and, and the feeling when I removed my hand was, and I got tails.
Well, I'm
And
glad you did
I
get
took it,
tailed.
yeah, I took it as a sign. So I'm happy now. But as I was saying, when you're, I don't know if you struggle with suicide thoughts, but when you're down there, you feel you're totally convinced that people are better off without you.
Yeah,
That's the main part. You're so convinced that the world and your loved ones would have better lives if you're not in it. But that's not the case, of course. But that's the reason I think why people do it, because they actually are so convinced that people are better off without you,
yeah.
and they can't see the love around them really, because it's pitch black and blacker than black.
Yeah, I've actually been there myself, so I can relate to what you said. I did try to commit suicide a long time ago. I like you said, it was just pitch black. Didn't
Mm.
know that I had anyone. This is back in the day when I was a man. I didn't need to talk about my feelings. Just bottle it up. And then
Yeah,
one night it
yeah,
exploded, and I didn't think anyone loved me. And, I was all this burden to everyone. So
mm.
myself, I went around and grabbed every single medication I could find in the house. Ended up being around 70 tablets all up, a lot of
Oof.
paracetamols, a lot of everything else, and I ingested all of them.
Yeah,
So lucky for me, and I didn't find this out till later. Like, I was a medic in the army, like I said before, and
yeah,
paracetamol is probably one of the easiest things to OD on. And if you have
yeah,
more than 24 in one go, that's pretty bad. That's
yeah.
gonna you shouldn't live from that. So I had at least 50
No,
paracetamols and then 20 roughly of other medication, and nothing happened. I didn't get sick. I didn't throw up. I didn't sleep. I I felt fine, and I was waiting for me to just drift away. That's what I wanted,
yeah,
just to drift away, to end what was happening, to make everyone else's lives better because I was such a burden, and nothing, absolutely
mm,
nothing. 6 o'clock. That was around 7 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm still awake, and I'm like, okay, this is a sign. I'm not meant to do this. And, I haven't looked back. I've had some bad times since then. And, I've had that thought pop in my head many times, and it still happens. When I'm in that depression mood, it comes in, just end it, make it life easier for your wife, for your son, for everyone else. But because I've went through that process when I actually try to commit suicide, I know that, and I'm in a good place now with medication and stuff like that, that I can, once that thought comes in my head, I can straight away go, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I thinking this? And cut it away. So, well, we still have too many suicides in the world, both men and women. And, we don't talk about it. And there is what you said, oh, they're selfish, they're cowards. Oh, excuse me. And I think that's just feeding into people's thoughts on suicide by, people saying that you're a coward, to want to commit suicide. That's damaging their mental state that's already damaged already. And it could be that last, straw that broke the camel's back to push them over to actually do it. Like I had a mate try to commit suicide, and, he actually asked for help. I don't think he was actually going to do it. Sometimes, you have those thoughts and you don't want to, but you want help. And, you ask for help saying, look, I'm feeling sad. I have these thoughts of committing suicide. When someone says that to you, that's your chance to reach out your hand and go, look, mate, I'm here for you. Let's get through this together. And I had another mate, when this guy, reached out for that help, laughed at him, said, well, just do it then, you coward, and hanged up. It's like, and then he jumped in the car and drove it off a cliff, off a hill. Lucky he survived, but, that him ringing up and saying, I need help, and then someone laughing and say, just do it, because they're thinking he wasn't serious, was that last straw. And, this happens every day, and people still aren't learning that. Someone might reach their hand down and say, I need help. Maybe, yes, maybe they're not actually going to go through with it, but they're asking for help. By refusing that help, or, even just listening to them, could be that last thing to push them over that edge.
Yeah, totally. Like you said earlier, I felt very common when you said you felt like a broken man. That's what I have felt like too. Like if you see a toy store and I was the only broken toy, and I didn't understand why, but I just felt broken. But the truth is, we're not broken, but maybe we are in some way better persons because of our issues. I think I am, at least I'm a very different parent than my parents was. So because we didn't talk about anything really, and we never hugged each other, we never said we loved each other. It's just but everybody knows that. We know that we do, but it was never talked about. So I've been very I've thought that this has been a very important part of me as a dad, that I tell my kids that I love them and hug them, and we have I tell them every day, if it's something that bothers you, if something happens, talk to me, so that they know they can have the trust to tell me if something happens, which I didn't have myself. So, but I don't know if I didn't have bipolar disorder, I don't know if I would have been as good a parent as I feel like I am now.
And, that's how, and, that's awesome. And, I try to do the same with my kid because I think that's one of the main ways to stop this stigma of, with mental health is, you know, whether it's men or women, you just suck it up, deal with it yourself,
Mm.
go to your psychologist, have your medication, but don't talk to me about it. Don't, openly talk about it. Like, some days when I talk about, mainly my PTSD and what triggered it, some days I can talk all day about it and I'm fine. It
Mm.
doesn't react me because I'm in a good mood, a good state of mind where I can sit there and tell people exactly how I got my PTSD. And then some days I can't. I'll just get too emotional, get
Mm.
too depressed, anxiety through the roof on what people will think.
Yeah,
But but by us teaching our kids to open up and talk about their feelings, about anything. And, when they tell you something like, and actually listen to them, that's how we change in that perspective of don't talk about it, suck it up, man
yeah,
up and move on. So, I find the same, my dad has PTSD also from the military. And before that, before he actually got diagnosed, he never spoke about anything because got brought up the same way. And
mm,
then even after he
yeah,
got diagnosed, he didn't really speak much about it until a few years later when he, was
oh,
getting good on good medication. And then, him find out that I had PTSD myself, and I was open to him and let them know what was happening. He started opening up to me. So, and I've never had my dad
yeah,
open up like that before. So it's really good to see that it is slowly changing. Oh, I wish it changed a bit quicker, but
mm,
it
mm,
is changing, and it's people like you, and anyone else that's suffering with a mental health issue, whether no matter what it is, whether it's schizophrenia, OCD, ADHD, PTSD, depression, anxiety, doesn't matter. I think we're all in it together. And,
yeah,
I've been talking to wife about how my vision, and, I want to go on the theme of Vikings, as we're part of the beard struggle, and I'm trying to transfer
yeah,
into a Viking. I want to form a shield war of what I want to call mental health Vikings, to battle
yeah,
um, this war, and it's bigger than any war that any man has ever fought. World War One, World War Two, all these other ones. Depression is not just depression, mental health issues is a war that's going to be going on for the rest of human life. And
yeah,
if we try to fight it alone, and which I have tried before, and it sounds like you have tried to, do it on your own, we lose.
yeah,
So we need each other. We need our doctors and our specialists and everything in our arsenal to win this battle. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing your experience. And I hope oh, excuse me, sorry. um I hope someone who watches this that's going through something very similar to you can go, holy shit, I need to do something. So I
yeah,
know it must have been hard, especially we've only known each other for a little bit. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
but no, I really appreciate it, Lars, and for opening up and sharing everything. Is there, before we leave, is there anything else you want anyone to know about living with mental health?
Biggest part is to just know that it affects you, yes, but it doesn't define you. Don't let it define you. Uh, and by being open, as I said, I felt a bit therapeutic for me in the sense that I lived my whole life let the bipolar disorder control me. But now that it's out there, I don't feel like it control me that much any longer. Now I'm behind the steering wheel and I have the control. That's probably the biggest part to say that yes, it affects you. Yes, it's a part of you, but it doesn't define you. Uh, uh, yeah, that's probably the biggest thing for me personally, at least. And yeah, that's it. And I actually have a great idea I can talk a little bit about. And when people often say, "Oh, that's crazy! You're insane," or whatever, you can now, yeah, I actually am. I have papers that says I am. Now I'm gonna do. Yeah, so I'm gonna cut out my diagnosis. I'm gonna laminate it and put it in my wallet. So I have a bipolar license, just like my driver license. So, yes, actually, here you are.
I like it. I like it. Own it. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you very much, and yeah, for sharing, and good luck with the future. Like I said before, I've seen what you've been doing in the gym. You really, I can see that you're really trying to improve, and it's amazing. I'm speechless what you've been doing. So keep up the great work, and we'll
Thank
keep
you.
in touch. And anyway.
Yeah. One last thing, maybe, because if you had approached me with this video interview in English as well, just 6, 8 months ago, I would say, hell no, no way, no way. But that speaks volumes of how long I've come in just half a year, maybe. But that's because I'm now on medication and I go to a therapist. So that's also a really important message. If you struggle to seek a therapist because you're afraid or whatever, seek up, use therapist. It works wonders. And as I said, just less than a year ago, this would never happen. That's the facts, really. Because I write English, I read English, I understand English, but I seldom speak English. So even though I know it fairly well, I have sometimes the words don't come to me automatic. I have to sometimes look for words. So that's but that's just training. The more you speak English, easier it becomes. But
Yeah. Well, you spoke awesome English, probably better than
thank
me.
you.
I don't speak English. I speak Aussie, so we got a lot of slang. So
Yeah.
no, it was really good. I understood every word you were saying. So no, you did a really good job. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lars, for opening up and openly talking about your struggles. It was an honor to have that chat with you, and I truly hope that this video helps someone out there. So anyone watching this, guys, if you are struggling with any form of mental health, seek help. Okay, there is people there that understand what you're going through. They're there to help. We can't win this battle ourselves. Like I said in the video, I want to start a movement of mental health Vikings, and we're going to form this shield wall and fight this battle. Not a battle, it's a war against mental health, and we can't do it by ourselves. We need the biggest army um, the world has ever seen to fight mental health. So until next time, guys, stay safe and look after each other.